Good evening and welcome to this September 13th, 2021 meeting of the Caldwell County Board of Education.
Recording in progress.
Our first item of business, as you reviewed your agenda there, is the swearing in of Mr. B.J. Four and Dan Kunert, the Superior Court Judge for the 25th Judicial District of North Carolina. 5th Superior Court Division is here to do that. So,
all right,
appreciate you being here.
Come up and your wife's going to hold the Bible with you. We can do it out here, that way people can see it. If you don't mind me having that, if you'll just repeat after me. I, William Joseph Ford.
I, William Joseph Ford.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I, state your name.
I, William Joseph Ford.
Do solemnly and sincerely swear.
Do solemnly and sincerely swear.
That I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
I will be faithful and bear true allegiance.
To the state of North Carolina.
To the state of North Carolina.
And to the constitutional powers.
And to the constitutional powers.
And authorities. Which are or may be established.
Which are or may be established.
For the government thereof.
For the government thereof.
And that I will endeavor.
And that I will endeavor.
To support, maintain, and defend.
To support, maintain, and defend.
The Constitution of said state.
The Constitution of said state.
Not inconsistent with.
Not inconsistent with.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
To the best of my knowledge and ability.
To the best of my knowledge and ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
I state your name.
I, William Joseph Ford.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution and laws.
The Constitution and laws.
Of the United States.
Of the United States.
And the Constitution and laws.
And the Constitution and laws.
Of the state of North Carolina.
Of the state of North Carolina.
And that I will faithfully discharge.
That I will faithfully discharge.
My duties as a member of the Caldwell County Board of Education.
My duties as a member of the Caldwell County Board of Education.
To the best of my ability.
To the best of my ability.
Good.
Thank you, Judge.
Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
I didn't mean to interrupt your applause. I want to tell you that I've known this guy for 30 years this year. And if he's anything like he was when I knew him years ago, he's going to be a great addition to your board. So good luck to you. Thank you. And you'll need to sign. You're gonna have to sign this. I've already signed some. Sign top.
Thank you, Judge Kunert. We appreciate it.
All you do.
Thank you so much. And welcome, BJ.
Thank you.
We'll move on with the agenda. The next thing is the invocation for the board. There are many places and situations that draw us to this moment of reflection. This past Friday was the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 events that occurred in New York City, also at the Pentagon, as well as the heroic efforts of passengers on board Flight 93 that crashed near Shanksville, Pennsylvania. Our country was unified at that point in 2001 as much as probably about any other time since Pearl Harbor. We should remember and never forget all those who were lost in the 9/11 tragedy. There are many others we need to remember as well. Those who suffered from the effects and still are from Hurricane Ida that has affected people all the way from Louisiana into the Cape Cod area, as well as those suffering from the earthquake in Haiti. Also, we need to be mindful of those along the West Coast where the fires have devastated just tens of thousands of acres of land and taken many homes and really changed people's lives dramatically there. We are also constantly reminded of the continuing COVID pandemic that has made for a very difficult time here and certainly around the world. We definitely want to show our support for all of our students, teachers, staff, and administrators. Dr. Phipps, the board, and so many others are working hard to deal with this matter as best we can. It is also a time to reflect on what we do when faced with a 9/11 or a pandemic. We need to focus on the unity and support that has helped us through the most difficult, heartbreaking times in our country's history. May we go forward in a spirit of respect, cooperation, and what is best for our students. Will you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Tonight it's being led by Dr. Katrina McKellen. If you would please stand.
Attention, salute, pledge.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. McKellen. Next is the approval of the agenda, which the board has had opportunity to review over a period of time here. Do I hear a motion we approve the agenda as presented?
Chairman Pennell, I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Next is approval of the minutes. We have a series of minutes, those coming from August the 3rd, 2021, which was minutes from a work session. And also on that same date, August the 3rd, closed session minutes and general account minutes. Then on August the 9th, we had our regular board meeting, the 2021 August 9th regular session. And also on August the 9th, closed session and general account minutes as well. And the last one is August 16, 2021, special call meeting minutes. So do I hear a motion that we approve all of these minutes, which would include items 3B through 3F?
Chairman Pennell, I make a motion we approve the August meeting minutes and general accounts items 3B through 3F.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes. Next, we have announcements. I'd like to recognize fellow board member, Mrs. Ann Edwards, to do some announcements.
Chairman Pennell, thank you for this opportunity to make announcements on behalf of our Board of Education. The first one is that we are hopeful that we will be able to resume our school visits, and while we had to cancel the first ones the first week of school, we have a group of visits scheduled for September the 30th beginning at 8 a.m. and our hope is to start at Happy Valley and continue to Valmead, West Lenoir, and Horizons. We scheduled these throughout the year and really make an effort to be in our schools and to see them. So I hope that materializes. The second announcement is that we will have a board work session on October the 5th. It will be at 8 a.m. And following that, the third announcement is that our regular board meeting is next scheduled for October the 11th at 6 p.m. here in this room. Thank you, Chairman Pennell.
Thank you, Mrs. Edwards. Dr. Phipps, you have some additional announcements?
And I wanted to take a moment just to say thank you to our nurses, our support staff, teachers, administrators, anyone who's a staff member. And our substitutes that are coming in during a difficult time for their work. We appreciate you helping us get through this first 3 weeks of school, and we're very grateful for your work. I want to let the public know that we were able to obtain a used school bus, and we used grant funds to refurbish the bus, and the Ed Foundation of Caldwell County helped put the wrapping on the bus. And you may have seen pictures, but you'll certainly see that out and about in our community and at schools. It's a code on the Go bus, which allows us to do some mobile work and allows us to take some computer programming and STEM-related work out into our neighborhoods and to our schools. So we're excited about that and look forward to see how it'll be used. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I'd heard a rumor already on social media today that South Caldwell was going to go to remote learning effective on Friday. I want you to hear me say that is not true. We have not had any plans or discussions. We monitor numbers on a regular basis, and we don't have any plans for any school at this point. We had one that just came off this week, but we currently don't have a plan to go into any type of remote learning for an extended period of time. Now, that may change tomorrow or the next day, but as we stand right now, we don't have that plan. I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that. Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is our public comment section, and individuals wishing to make public comment must submit a written request to speak no later than 3:30 on the day of the meeting. Each speaker will be allotted 3 minutes, and Dr. Phipps will be keeping the time, and you probably will be able to hear when that goes off. That being the case, we will move on with the public comment section. And first speaker is Amanda Rea. Mrs. Rea?
Thank you.
Am I good to go? Okay. Good evening. I would like to publicly thank Ms. Edwards for the action she took at the specially called board meeting on August 16th. The hostility in the room was easily felt and heard, and it took bravery and a deep concern for the safety of our children, educators, and support staff to move ahead with the motion to make masks mandatory for the start of the school year. While I believe the rowdy crowd prevented an appropriate opportunity for board discussion and a possible second, I'm not sure that it would have made a difference even with the compelling information provided by the medical professional in attendance. As I left the meeting, disappointed in the lack of action from this board, it was to shouts from parents that I should just keep my child at home. That is not how this works. Every child is entitled to a public education. And as an educator myself, I understand the importance of having children in classrooms. As a person who feels compassion for others, I also understand the importance of joining together and everyone doing their part to see this pandemic come to an end. On August 18th, I emailed Dr. Phipps to file a formal complaint against this board for violating Caldwell County Schools Policy Code 4230 regarding communicable disease, which states, school personnel shall implement measures to control the spread of communicable disease as directed by the state or local health department. In the case of emerging illnesses not addressed by state or local health department rules or guidance, school personnel shall implement control measures recommended by the CDC as directed otherwise, unless directed otherwise by a school nurse or other relevant medical authority. The state health department made it clear that masks were recommended, as did the CDC. Still, this board failed to take immediate action and did not comply with its own policy. School started August 23rd. On August 30th, masks became mandatory in all schools. For the last 2 weeks, there have been more than 1,000 students in quarantine as a daily average. As a result of the negligent actions of this board, employees of Caldwell County Schools and students in the system have gotten very sick, and some have faced hospitalization. Regardless of which side of this ridiculous argument you take, I ask, what is the harm in requiring masks as you have? Truly, what proven harm is there to children or adults? I am confused about why some people would rather have children unmasked and in quarantine and out of school for 2 weeks instead of requiring a mask in school all the time to mitigate the spread and occurrences of quarantines. The logic does not work. Currently, 37% of all positive cases in Caldwell County are children. A student at South Caldwell High School has just been flown to Asheville to receive treatment. Employees are being asked to come in, even when appropriate, because there are not enough substitutes to go around. The doctor from our local hospital made it very clear to this board that they do not have the capacity to treat children with COVID. Hospitals in our area are reaching critical capacity levels, and we are on track to be the community with a field hospital yet again. Please listen to medical and health professionals. Please listen to the scientists. Please keep our children, educators, and support staff safe by continuing to require masks in Caldwell County schools. As a final note, I would like to add that the seat filled by Mr. Forr should have been first offered to Ms. Elaine Setzer Maxwell and then to Ms. Sarah Koenig, as they both received more votes than Mr. Forr in the general election, and it was very clear what the people of Caldwell County wanted. There is a clear need for transparency on this board. Thank you.
Thank you. We might also note that Mr. Knight is with us by Zoom. He is out of town, so just wanted to let you know that he is at the meeting by Zoom. Next speaker, Ms. Jamie Clore.
So I had like this big long thing or whatever. I just want to just simply state that I understand the lady before me, I understand her side, but I just want you to hear my side. There are children that cannot wear these. There are children that have problems, my son being one of them. We have a constitution, we have a Nuremberg code, we also have a U.S. code regulation that protects us parents that have children that cannot wear these masks. And we also need to remember that because of the Nuremberg code, that was a whole group of people that were targeted and that were placed with a mark upon them, led to gas chambers, and then ultimately resulted into their death. Now, I know that sounds a little harsh or whatever, but I'm just saying, you need to see both sides of this thing, because we do have a 1776 Constitution under our republic, and our U.S. code protects us, and so does the Nuremberg Code, everything, and even the FDA. A mask is an EUA product. You guys are not medically licensed. The CDC even has things that conflict mask wearing. The FDA has things that conflict mask wearing. The boxes on surgical masks state clearly that it does not stop the spread of viruses. The microns of a virus are so small that smoke can go through them. Now, if you think that a virus is going to be stopped by a mask, then you're badly mistaken. It is not happening. I have sat for 3 days in constitutional law since Friday. We are protected by our God-given rights under the 1776 Constitution. And if you don't know what that is, you need to read it. We're also protected under the North Carolina Constitution, Article 1, Section 6, Section 2, and Section 7. Check it out. We are protected just as everybody else is protected. My child suffered very harshly last year. Very. I suffer very harshly. I have 2 medical conditions, and so does my son. You need to see both sides. We have rights under the freedom of choice. That's this whole American thing. This is called these United States of America, which is a constitutional republic. Please understand that just because one side thinks that you should go by fake science, that you need to understand that God protects us and our children. And it is our choice to do what we need to do and how we need to protect our children under what God tells us to do. Amen. Not what science tells us to do when it comes down to what God tells us to do. And I'm done.
Amen.
Thank you, Mrs. Clore. Next is Mrs. Carly Schwartz. Is she here? She's here. Okay, very good.
At the last board meeting, Dr. Lowry spoke as a COVID expert for 23 minutes about the benefits of students wearing masks, which not only would have limited the spread of COVID, but would have limited the number of students required to quarantine, currently averaging 1,000 students and 65 staff members daily. As a result, many working parents had to stay home, and their loss of pay is a hardship, and this board owns that. After being medically informed, Ann Edwards expressed her desire to keep students learning in school and made a motion to mask students, which then resulted in a Jerry Springer circus. Darrell Pennell opted not to remind the crowd of the board's policy where persons who disrupt an official meeting can be asked to leave or upon refusal to leave are guilty of a Class 2 misdemeanor. Instead, Darrell responded to Ann's motion by stating, an N95 mask, unless you issue it to all kids, a mask is useless. I respectfully ask that this board get clarification on whether Darrell's unsolicited medical advice was accurate. I also respectfully request that those who are disruptive at these meetings be reminded of this board's policy so that board members can share their thoughts without intimidation. While one can argue with the semantics of the CDC's recommended versus mandated mask guidelines, the CDC's recommendation, along with Dr. Lowry's, should have been enough for this board to implement their own policy guidelines and require students to return to school masked. Because the board, with Ann Edwards as the lone exception, opted to disregard their own policy, we now have one teacher and one 14-year-old student on ventilators. There may be more that I'm not aware of, but even one is too many, and that onus rests solely with this board. Last week, I required a COVID test. The reality of being exposed at my place of work took a major emotional toll, particularly because this board had it in their power to minimize that risk. While masks are currently in place, the idea of a group of selfish individuals are influencing this board to unmask students appalls me. They call themselves American, but I do not think they grasp the responsibility that comes with the freedoms associated with that title. These parents who want their children to receive a public education unmasked, they have remote instruction as an option, and by their own convictions should have already signed up to do so. What they do not have is the right to make others sick. Reducing COVID spread impacts this entire community, including those outside the education system, who require postponed medical procedures, which is why I deem those who can't be slightly inconvenienced to wear a mask as the most selfish among us. Last month, Dr. Lowry spoke of 5 of our children who had to be helivacted to Children's Hospital because our own hospital is ill-equipped to accommodate them.
Next on the agenda is Elaine Setzer Maxwell.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. In August, the board voted to appoint BJ Ford to fill Chris Bumgarner's vacant seat on the board. I am here, as well as many other voters, to address the public concerns about this choice. Although the appointment is legal according to Board Policy 2115, your decision was not ethical. You chose someone who was on the ballot last November, but was not the voters' next choice. If this board's duty is to support students and be an advocate for the entire community, the person with the next highest number of votes after Chris Becker should have been chosen. The community had spoken by voting. You, the board, overrode the will of the people. Your selection speaks volumes of the people you think should be on the school board. You chose someone who is very similar to everyone else on this board. There are students and families who are not represented by this board. And this vacant seat was an opportunity to change this. There were many times last year when messages supporting diversity and inclusion were spoken by each of you. But where is the action? The issues that our students and educators are facing today need a variety of voices to determine what is truly in the best interest of every citizen in Caldwell County. This empty seat was a perfect chance to appoint an educator or someone to help represent the entire population served by the board. In Caldwell County, according to the 2020 census, 13.3% of the population are comprised of racial, ethnic minorities, and they need representation as well. You could have put action behind your diverse statements. I know your decision followed board policy, but you did not make the best decision regarding representation of all students and constituents in the county. I hope in the future you will truly show you care about the entire county and not just your political interest. Thank you. Elaine. Thank you, Elaine Setzer Maxwell.
Thank you.
I'm with her.
Next speaker is Kim Harmon.
Thank you, members of the board. First, I'd like to start off with this quote. Those who would give up essential liberty to pursue a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. That was from Benjamin Franklin, and you really should look into why that's true. So, I've heard a lot of people talk about masks. Not a lot of science behind it. There's capacities, numbers of students that are sick. A recent study in Georgia looked at over 160 schools and found that masking of faculty and staff reduced the incident rates by 37%. Sorry, I get a little nervous. So initially you think 37, huge number, big change. But here's the actual numbers behind it. Participating schools that use masks observed 2.9 cases per 500, while non-participating schools observed a case count of 3.08. That's a 0.18 increase between mask and non-mask. This is over 160 schools. And it also found that a majority of the cases that came were not from students, but faculty and staff. Another glaringly obvious fact about surgical masks is that they do not contain viruses or bacteria, nor are they used in the prevention or contraction of pathogens as printed on their boxes. You can literally take a surgical mask, spray just about any kind of aerosol through it you want. It will not contain it. The pathogen size of the COVID-19 virus is 0.1 to 0.3 nanometers. That's about 100 times smaller than an N95 is rated for. One of my concerns, however, is how the board decided to handle the mask policy change. Your own policy manual states, a system of excellent schools involves parents in decisions regarding their own children, the educational programs, and the schools. This seems contradictory since all of us were informed of the mask policy change after school hours, after working hours, and with no public vote on the matter, and no involvement whatsoever of us, the parents. You said you follow the science, but science shows that there is no marked gain in protection from COVID by using just a mask as a prophylaxis. Again, studies show that masks do not make a significant impact on the transmission or contraction, mostly due to their mechanical failures as effective filters against pathogens. You can also look up a study from Life News, or what is it? It's from LifeSite News. 47 different studies, meta-analysis, from years back to present, National Library of Medicine, CDC, about how masks do not work at protection against COVID-19.
Thank you, Mr. Harmon. Appreciate it. Next is Roseanne McDonald.
Good evening. My name is Rosanna MacDonald. I'm a registered nurse, so Ms. Edwards, I'd like to also thank you for your decision about the mask mandate. I am a registered nurse for medically fragile children, and they are at very high risk of dying during this pandemic. So through exposure to their siblings who might be going to school or parents who have to go out to work, masks are important. But I'm here to talk about something else. I am the Vice President of the Caldwell County NAACP, and I'm here to talk about Chris Baumgartner's replacement and school board diversity. After Caldwell County School Board member Chris Baumgartner resigned in August, the board had an opportunity to follow through with public messages made after the insensitive, hurtful, racist reenactment of George Floyd's murder by South Caldwell students. You all had an opportunity to let the community know that you were serious about being committed to a more diverse school board. You had an opportunity to prove that you were more serious about building and strengthening relationships within our community and working united in the school system to build harmony. Instead, you voted without a meeting for someone who brings no diversity to the board and no educational work experience. You chose Mr. Four, another white man in law enforcement. You ignored the opportunity to add diversity to the board by not choosing Elaine Setzer Maxwell, an African-American woman with a bachelor's degree in social work and a master's in counseling, and decades of experience in the school system. You decided not to choose someone who currently works very closely with black students as an assessment retention minority recruiter at Caldwell Community College and Technical Institute. Someone who, with lived experiences of black people, close ties to the black community of Caldwell County, and who received 836 more votes than Mr. Four. School boards with members of diverse backgrounds, experiences, genders, and ethnicities allow for the group to better think through concerns and perspectives of key issues within a community. Having access to various viewpoints is invaluable when considering important decisions regarding education and policy issues. When students see leaders of their communities that look like them or have had similar experiences as them, it can be encouraging and supportive. Your decision makes it clear that diversity and students of color are not priorities for this Caldwell County School Board. And I'm very sad about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McDonald. Next is Mrs. Kim Moss.
Good evening. Again, my name is Reverend Kim Moss. I am president of the Caldwell County NAACP and the senior pastor at St. Paul AME Church here in Lenoir. Thank you for this opportunity to speak before you. I just come really speaking from my heart about the disappointment in the appointment of Mr. Four. I do know that you're given this opportunity that you can appoint whoever you want to, but it disappoints my heart and it hurts our community that the school board does not represent our community, that this is a majority white, all white school board with 2 females is appalling to me. Our community represents African Americans, Mexicans, Latinx, Asians, Hmong, and yet nobody is sitting in this seat. That you chose without transparency, and I've heard even as early as today to trust the process. That how do we trust a process when people, the people have spoken and you have not heard the people? Mr. Pennell, you said in your invocation that I hope that it was from your heart. You said we focus on unity and support, respect and cooperation, and what is best for our students. This does not look like what's best for our students. Who is the voice for the community that is not white? Where is the voice? We need a voice. We need a listening ear. We need an opening here. We can't trust a process that's not transparent. So I just want to close in saying it didn't have to be Elaine, Setzer, Maxwell. It could have been Ms. Koenig. It could have been somebody else, but you skip over people without due process, and we as a community are disappointed in that, and we want you to know that you will hear us loud and clear time after time after time when you misrepresent what we stand for. Thank you for hearing my voice.
Thank you. Thank you. Next speaker, Mrs. Jenny Dill.
As a retired school counselor, I'm aware of the importance of trust and integrity when dealing with students, parents, and the community. When educators succumb to outside pressure, particularly political pressure, trust is lost. When the appearance of decision-making seems to be skirting the state's open meetings laws, and when decisions are made in informal, non-educational settings, then not only is trust lost, but the integrity and character of those educators come into question. David Brooks, a most respected Republican writer and commentator, said that our nation's divisiveness is in large part because Democrats and Republicans are more loyal to their parties than to their country, to their communities, or to the citizens they represent. The citizens of Caldwell County deserve leaders who put education over party politics. Help us regain our trust in this board by explaining the process you use that led you to select a Republican male over 2 female candidates, one of whom is an educator with over 40 years of educational experience, holds a master's degree, is a leader in the minority community, and who received 863 more votes than the board's choice. These are difficult times, and we want to come together and support all who are working for the children of Caldwell County. May you have the courage and wisdom to do the right thing for our students and for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dill. Next, Mrs. Joyce McCormick. Yes.
Good evening. The action of this board in ignoring the votes of the people of Caldwell County is stunning. Stunning. The ethical and logical choice to fill a vacancy on the school board would be to choose the next highest vote recipient. That person is Elaine Setzer Maxwell, who was number 4 of the 8 people who ran for a seat on this board. It doesn't matter whether any of the current board members like the person with the most votes. We voted in a democracy and we made our choices known at the polls in November 2020. Where are your ethics? Where's your sense of outrage? I know 2 of you very well, and I'm stunned at your lack of integrity in allowing this to happen. The people who voted are terribly disappointed by the actions of the people we elected to guide our children academically and morally. This is morally wrong. This is ethically wrong.
Thank you, Mrs. McCormick. Thank you. We will continue with the meeting. Dr. Bill Griffin.
Thank you, Chairman Pennell, Vice Chair Branch, members of the board, Dr. Phipps. I have before you this evening Category 6 Human Resources Assistant Superintendent Me, Dr. Bill Griffin, and Subject A, Human Resources, Usual and Customary Informational Items. The first information that we have here is simply for your information and requires no action at this time. That's our leave of absences. Subject B, Human Resources, Usual and Customary Action Items. These are our contracts. I respectfully request approval of those actions as presented this evening.
Do I hear a motion that we approve the Human Resource Services usual and customary action items as it relates to contracts?
I move that we approve the contracts as presented by Dr. Griffin.
Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Any comments?
I'll second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. Subject C, Human Resources, Usual and Customary Personnel Action Items is our substitute list. I respectfully request approval as those items as presented this evening.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we approve the usual and customary personnel action items that relates to the substitute list? Is there a motion to that effect?
Chairman Penn will make a motion, we approve the substitute list as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Great, thank you very much. And finally, Subject D are our September board transfers for school year 2021, 2022. The total of transfers requested are 77. Transfers recommending board approval are 73. Transfers not recommending board approval are 4, for a total board approval for the 2021-22 school year of 1,567. I respectfully request approval of those items and those transfers presented this evening.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the September board transfer list for 21-22 as presented by Dr. Griffin?
Chairman Pennell, I move that we approve the transfer list for 21-22 as is currently presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments?
Dr. Griffin, how many total transfers this year?
That'd be a total of 1,567 for this school year 2021-22.
Anything else? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much. That's all I have this
Thank
evening.
you, Dr. Griffin. Appreciate it. Next, I'd like to call on our superintendent, Dr. Don Phipps.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have two items. 7A deals with policy 2310, which is public participation at board meetings. And the requested change here is just to change the time from 3:30 p.m. to 9:30 a.m. to allow individuals to sign up. This will help us if we have meetings that are scheduled prior to 3:30, so that we have that time regardless of the time of the meeting. That'll be set and we won't have to make that change. This has been up for public comment and I'm asking respectfully for your approval.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we approve policy 2310, public participation at board meetings, that has been on the table, so to speak, for the last 30 days and now for approval. Do I hear a motion that we approve this item?
Chairman Pennell, I move that we approve the board policy 2310, public participation at board members as has been, at board meetings, as has been presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Any questions?
Did we have any public comment during the 30 days?
The only feedback we had was a comment that board meetings should always be in late afternoon time. It shouldn't be at 12 or when any other time like that.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you. My second item, 7B, is to bring for your consideration and hopefully approval tonight is amendment number 1 to the agreement between the Caldwell County Board of Education and Duke University on behalf of its School of Medicine and Duke Clinical Research Institute. This is just a one-year continuation of the contract and agreement that we have with them as we work through what we're dealing with in COVID.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we approve the amendment with Duke University on behalf of its School of Medicine and the Clinical Research Institute as has been presented by Dr. Phipps?
Chairman Pennell, make a motion, we approve the agreement between Caldwell County Board of Education and Duke University.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
Any comments or questions?
I do just want to clarify, is there any cost at all from Caldwell County Schools involved
We
with
don't
this?
pay anything at all. No.
It's just sharing of data.
And it's been a very good source. Anything else? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, the next item is need a motion to convene to closed session to discuss confidential personnel matters. And we expect that there will be no action afterwards, but I need a motion to go into closed session.
Chairman Pennell, I move that we convene to closed session pursuant to the items listed on the current agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And motion passes. We will be in closed session, and as I indicated, there'll be no action once we return. So have a good evening.
Recording
The other item is to adjourn. Do I hear a motion we adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Dwayne.
Thanks, Dwayne.